Hey there, conscious, conscious, conspicuously inconspicuous. Okay, yeah, that's a nice one. Hey, let me know, guys, if the audio is right. I have something coupling here. Oh yeah, there you go. Okay, that should be a little bit better. Anyway, how's everyone doing? I was just looking into a couple things that are quite interesting. I want to share with you guys. This is from this up right here. Human extinction. That's why I went with this. Human extinction based on fertility rate. The extinction may be inevitable due to recent physiological change in men. Sperm count is dropping like 1.5% each year. And based on some serious publications, we are heading into a point where fertility will be very difficult. It's going to be increasingly difficult physically for people to reproduce. Besides the desire to do so, that is something we're already struggling with. People wanting to have kids, but check this out: the accelerate after 20,000 to 2.6 per year on average. So 2.6 per average sperm count keeps going down. Men are less fertile all over the world. It's not specifically from one demographic or one region, it's all over the world. And there's a number um, of theories. Apparently, pollution, sedentary lifestyle, changes in our diet, and a number of other things. But I don't think that there's anything they're saying that specifically nails it in terms of why this is happening. But this, I mean, 2.6 per year average. That's how the average sperm count is decreasing. We are looking at. I mean, there was a figure here like for by 2045, we're gonna be like done. There's gonna be no fertility rate left in any men. And if you combine this with some of these other figures, such as this one, um, the amount of people we have, the total fertility rate all over the world, this is extremely concerning. You're looking at, this is as clearly as you could possibly get. 1.5, 1.7. Let's say you go with a 2.25 in places like Argentina, United States, a little bit higher in Mexico, 2.25. If you have anything less than if you don't have, as of right now, if you don't have a 2.1 in whatever country you're in, you're not replacing the amount of people that you have in existence. So you're looking at a, what was it, like 2050, 2060, give or take. You see the population of the world pretty much starting to drop in most developed countries. So yeah, this is quite bad. And it's something that's not really being addressed, at least not in any serious manner. We remove this, go back to this other one. And here you have the average age, which is again same old thing. It's slightly worse in Europe, a lot worse in Germany and Italy. US a little bit younger, 35, 40. That's the average age, 35 to 40 average age for the population in the United States. 40 to 45 in Canada and most of Europe. That is just 10 years of difference. That is still aging population, the only ones, again, the only ones that are kind of like in a better place, that's Africa. That's the African continent by large. Um, Latin America a little bit better, but again, not a whole lot. Yeah, Scott Hammer. There. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit laggy. So yeah, probably a little bit slower. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. I think we're getting to a point where the insanity of population control, of overpopulation, the myth of overpopulation, um, it is it will have a massive consequence. It's not just that we may end up going extinct. If you look at sperm count, fertility for both men and women, the little desire of people to be bothered with having families, people don't care anymore. So if you combine those two, you have yeah, I'm kind of like change that a little bit there. Whoop, there we go. Yeah. If you combine those two, you're looking at an extinction level event in the next 100 years. I mean, we're kind of screwed, especially the fertility rate, which they obviously have not, put the finger exactly on what's causing it. They just know it's happening, but they don't have much of an explanation other than, it's probably sedentary lifestyle, obesity. Really, everyone is so damn fat they don't have, acceptable levels of sperm count. I think it's a lot more um, into that than just saying, oh, yes, it's just, sedentary lifestyle, climate change, and that's sort of what is happening in China. Well, they're probably lying, and they had the one child policy for way too long. Now they have a population that is not capable of sustaining itself, just like everyone else. And it's slightly better. Again, the map is pretty clear, and there's of course variations here and there, but again, other than Africa, a little bit of South America, you could say, is somewhat of a younger. But if you go back to the fertility rates, the fertility rate is the fertility rate is a real problem here. The fertility rate is what's just showing you that we cannot replace the people that are dying today. It's not only a problem of an aging population. With economists, I saw a guy talking in the podcast of Joe Rogan, a little bit of a quack. Really, he didn't have many of his numbers right. He made some insane statements about Russia, like saying that Russia never fought anyone that was technically inferior to them, which is kind of messed up, because that's definitely not true. And that they never gave up that Russia never lost a war without losing at least 500,000 men. Anyway, a bunch of moronic statements that I just don't get. But he was focusing on the aging population. This is the real problem. The real problem is the fertility rate. We're just not having enough kids to replace the people that are dying today. And 80 years go by this fast. In 80 years, we're screwed. We don't have any way of sustaining this level of population. Before 100 years go by, we will see an accelerated decrease of the population, besides the aging population problem that we have. So it's not only going to be that we reach we peak and then we start going down. As we start going down, everyone gets older. There's going to be a point where you'll look around and not see many young people, let alone kids. You'll see almost no kids, and you'll see very few young people. And that's a massive problem. We won't have, you'll see a change in the way our society works as it's never been seen before. I mean, there's been points in which there was massive loss of life and population dropping. I don't think it's ever been the case of pretty much the entire world being in the same boat, except for maybe Africa. Yeah. Jim Penn says, I already feel old and I'm only 26 years old. Yeah, man, I get it. Let me go through some of the comments. There are certain population segments that are low birth rates. I'm a Baptist in Appalachia. The average number of children in my church is around 4 per couple. The Amish, too, have many kids. Yeah, I get that. How many Amish do you have? You know, this is an average. That's the way averages work. If you have a few guys in your church that have 4 kids, right? Fantastic. I mean, really, I mean it. We should all have more kids. I do my little contribution. I have 3 kids. If everyone would have 3 kids, we wouldn't have this problem. The problem is not me. The problem is not the guy in Appalachia with his 4 kids or the Amish. The problem is that in general, in average, generalized, right? In the bigger picture, people don't even have anywhere near close to 4 kids. You're looking at, again, what it says here, fertility rate, they have 1.5 kids or 2 kids. The way this works is pretty much this way. 2.1 is the sustained rate. 2.1 is the number by which you replace the 2 adults that are necessary to, produce new children plus a 0.1, which is not 0.1, like 10% of a kid. No, it just means that for whatever incident may happen, mortality, infant mortality, which is very low all over the developed world, but anything else in terms of death at an earlier stage than the average expectancy, you will have somewhat of a little bit better than 2. So it's 2.1 is a sustained rate for replacing the population without growing. You're not growing with 2.1. You're simply replacing the people as they die, and you sustain 100 million, 200 million, whatever number of people you have, you sustain it with 2.1. Anything less than 2.1, you start dropping, and your population starts aging at an accelerated rate. This is the problem that you see. Yeah, you do have exceptions. You have here says some families in our church have 10 kids. Not an exaggeration. I believe you. Yeah, but how many of those families are there? Very little, just way too little. If everyone had 3-4 kids, we wouldn't be in this mess. But this will be a huge problem. And financially, the amount of people working so as to sustain and pay for the older people that already, worked their entire lives, they contributed their entire adult lives, their more productive years, they did that so as to sustain the ones before them. Now you're in that same boat, but with less people. And eventually we'll get to a point where one adult will have to sustain himself and some old person that retired. What's happening in China? Well, COVID and a bunch of our stuff. And who knows what could end up happening out there. I mean, the way they control the population in China, the way they hide information, it's anyone's guess, really. You could have anything happening in China right now. You won't know the entire picture. Raul Castillo says, GMO made rats sterile after 3 generations. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. And I believe you. I mean, I have no reason why to think anything other than, yes, genetically modified crops. Who could possibly expect that to be anything good? Taking time bomb in your food and water. Well, the amount of plastic in anything we drink and eat, microplastics, even our clothes, And I used to be the kind of guy that was more of the tactical clothing, the synthetic stuff. It has its advantages, but at the same time, any little garment that you have that uses plastic, polyester, or nylon, or whatever the hell it is, all of those little filaments of plastic, you're inhaling it. It goes into your body, and I don't think it does any good. I think it's actually quite bad, and that's probably why we're seeing this. Montana Grizz. So America and its open border is a good thing. Yeah, yeah, it is. Sure, no doubt it is. I mean, we will see a point in which people will be trying to entice and trying to bring people to their countries from those that are more like these. So yeah, about the open border thing, is that good? I mean, you could look at it in terms of no, of course it's not. It's never good to not have control of your own borders. I mean, seriously, for real, what you would have, what you should have, should be like um, a more efficient migration policy by which you attract the people that you want, while at the same time screening for those elements that you don't want to have in your country, which is not happening right now. Everyone just crosses illegally, and it's a big old mess, as you sure know. But yes, you will be looking at a very, I mean, in our lifetimes, you'll see countries like United States, like Canada. You will see countries in Europe trying to find ways of becoming more attractive for people from this part of the world, South America, and people from this part of the world. You will see ways in which they try to attract new people, because we're running out of people in this world as it is. It may seem that we've been overpopulated if you believe some of the bullshit from Bill Gates and all of that dark, sinister elite. But the reality is that no, we're running out of people within our lifetime. We will see an aging population in most of our lifetimes. My theory, the 32712. My theory is, if immigration were restricted, I bet you'd see a return to the Catholic, evangelical, Christian based culture within a generation by birth rates alone. But based on what exactly? You already have Catholics in these countries. You have Catholics in the United States, and they're not doing it, man. The idea that, oh, because it's a super Catholic um, community, they will have a whole lot of kids. I mean, again, you may have your group, the people you associate with in your church, Catholic or evangelical, or you know later day saints, with the Mormons. Well, yeah, sure, you have a bunch of Mormons in Utah that have a lot of kids, right? Salt Lake City, lots of families with lots of kids. It's not enough. You just cannot focus on, oh yeah, the Amish have a lot of kids. Well, what about the other 99.9% of the country? Are they having kids as well? The numbers say that no, they're not. And just closing the borders or doing anything different there will not change what people actually do. I think that the main problem, I mean, it's a combination of things. This thing about sperm count dropping the way it is definitely not helping at all, right? Um, Men's sperm count are dropping all over the world at a rate that could lead to human extinction. Yeah, good luck with that. It's not just this, it's the fact that people just don't want the responsibility anymore. People just want to go and have fun and don't be bothered with raising kids. And if they have kids, they have one, or at the best, they have two. And those are the ones that can have kids, right? Let's not even get started on those that can have them in spite of wanting them. So, what is it that you'll see? I don't think it's as simple as, well, let's all move to Africa because they have kids. I don't think that's going to be a solution. I think that what you will see is there's going to be a lot of the people from these places, right? A lot of people from South America and Africa keep on doing what they've been doing already, moving, right? And the idea that everyone in South America is going to the United States is not always the case. It's actually, the case of many people that move to Europe as well from South America. It's maybe more of the case that if you have to walk all over to the United States, you're pretty desperate. You're poor as hell, and you don't have many options left. If you have a little bit more of the education and you buy a plane ticket, you either fly to the United States, which will not be all that easy for you to go in because the United States attracts more illegals than legal immigration. At least that's the way it seems based on how immigration works. Lots of these guys end up over there, and the same goes for many here, right? So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. My theory, okay, we would lose population for sure, but those who would rebuild would be Christians, popping kids out like popcorn. Again, it simply doesn't happen. That's what we would like to think it would, but and you have, you know what? You have a perfect example right over there. Right over there. That is Ireland, Republic of Ireland, very Catholic, country, maybe one of the most Catholic countries in all of Europe. And they tend to have quite a bit of kids, but it's not enough. Why? Because even Catholics, even devout Catholics don't want to have 4 or 5 kids like maybe they used to back in the day. Most practicing Catholics will have maybe 2 or 3 kids tops. And the numbers show just that. It's just a little bit better than some of the other parts, but definitely better than Italy and even Poland, right? Ukraine, they stopped having kids entirely. But all over Europe, you see the same thing. France, a little bit better, France. And some of the Nordic countries, they've been applying some policies, basically paying people to have kids. I mean, if you want to start a family and you have the option of going anywhere, best place would be around here. Sweden, Norway, some of these Nordic countries, they will just pay for you to have kids. They will just pay you to, and not just pay like welfare. No, just anyone, no matter what your income is. Even if you're doing good, doesn't matter. You have a kid, they pay, for pretty much everything for that kid. Why? Because they're desperate for people. And at least they are on kind of like the right track, because if you don't give them an incentive, if you don't give people an incentive to have kids, and I guess this is kind of confusing for many Americans that think, oh yeah, typical poor strategy, a poor illegal immigrant, he will just have 3 or 4 kids and collect benefits or welfare. Yeah, if you don't want that, what you do is different. You have more affordable or subsidized childcare, so as to have the parents work and be more inclined to have kids because they can go on with their lives. They will not be impacted economically in the same way. One of the main reasons that people don't have kids is that they cannot afford them anymore. Seriously, that's the big problem is I can't afford to have kids, so I don't have any. We immediately assume that, yeah, everyone wants to have a bunch of kids because the government pays you. It's simply not happening. That's what we may see in certain demographics. But even in those demographics, even in the poor Latino moving illegally to the United States, they're not having kids either. And you see it even in Latin America itself. If you just look at what Latin America is right now, it is barely a little bit better, right? No, that's not the one. That's the average age. No, this is the one I mean. The average, the demographics. Look at Argentina is pretty much the same as in the United States. Brazil is even worse. They're just not having children. All across Latin America, you have basically all across the American continent, you basically have the same thing, right? You basically have the same. I mean, this is super interesting. The idea that all of these guys from Latin America and Central America, maybe Central America is a little bit better, maybe just a tad better there in terms of a bit of higher fertility rate, is getting closer to that 2.5, almost 3. But look at what we're talking about. We're scratching at the bottom of the barrel. What is it? Guashana? What the hell is this? This is the only one that has a solid 3. Solid 3, right? and a little bit better like in Bolivia, Peru, right? Those places. But man, still, it's not enough, and it keeps on. And you know what's even worse? If you want to get depressed, it keeps on dropping. It keeps dropping all over the world. So you'll see, like in 10 years from now, you'll barely be getting to 1.5, 1.2. Who knows how bad this thing will get? Anyway, it's clearly a human extinction level problem that it's not about in like in 1,000 years. No, this is like in a matter of decades. Montana Grizz. It would have been nice if public education would discuss this, right? Yeah, it would have been, but you know what? They like to talk about so much other bullshit, and you cannot do the same thing. You cannot do both at the same time. You cannot demonize families and your typical family structure, husband and wife, man and woman, stay at home mom looking after the kids, have this. If you're going to be demonizing the traditional family, you cannot then expect people to start popping out kids. You need the traditional family so as to be inclined to have at the very least a couple kids. And again, 2 kids is not enough. You need more people who want to have at least 3 or more. And there's just not enough. Let me know there. I mean, there's a bunch of people here. Let me know how many kids you have. Just quick number: 2, 3, 1, none, 0. Let me know. I mean, let's make a quick survey of what are like-minded people. I mean, let me go first. Boom. Right. That's me. 3 kids. That's what and if I look around, you see, no, I would be one of the ones that have more kids than most of the people I know. Most of the people I know have 1 kid, 2 kids. More than 3 kids is rare, right? It just, and there you go, right? For every one of us that has 3 kids, there's someone out there that probably has none, right? So that's what I mean by. And yet another good example, David. There are 3 kids and 2 grandkids, right? So that's solid. That's a good number. But how many kids will your kids have? Statistically speaking, your kids won't have 3 kids. Statistically speaking, your kids will probably, oh yeah, dad. But you know what? My job, my career, I barely can deal with one. Let's see about having that next kid in a couple years. That's how it goes, and that's why we see these numbers dropping so much. Okay. JCTX, heard some old folks talking one time. They came from a huge family, 8 to 10 kids, like back in the 1930s. Yes, yeah, and back in those times, not only was it more of a traditional family structure, yeah, you ways of contraceptives, so as to not have kids were not that much of a thing, and nature took care of the rest. You had sex, you had kids. Basically, that was it. Now, with the idea of controlling how much kids you have, and not only that, the idea of it being a burden on your life. It used to be like 100 years ago that for poor people, kids were an asset. You had kids, you lived in a farm, your kids were, free labor, basically, right? And that's the way it was in some other parts of the world until, again, not that long ago. Now, all of that has changed. And now, instead of, the wife having a few pups, having 5, 6, 7, 10 kids, and some of those surviving, like half of them surviving, so 5 reach adulthood. Instead of doing that, the model that we're in basically says, yeah, mom is not having a bunch of kids, your wife is just working as much as you are, and that's basically it. And why is that? Well, it's a business model that definitely benefited some people, probably not the average common man on the street, but it's definitely a model that was pushed and forced upon us. The idea of, yeah, stay at home moms, yeah, that is in the 50s. That was in the 60s. No, now a modern woman has no kids and goes to work just like a man, which, do whatever you want, but the consequences of not taking care of business in terms of having families that have kids is that we are looking at extinction in a very short period of time. I mean, let's try to laugh at this, but if this continues this way, if you combine the low fertility rate that we have in general, if you combine this low sperm count, low fertility rate with the lack of desire of of people in general to have children, we're in a very tough spot. Conscious movie reviews. Hey man, nice to see you there. When life is comfy, society is less in survival mode to have babies and be creative. Native American tribes throughout the US had small families for survival. Okay, but what was a small family by those standards, right? What was a small family for survival that Native American? I mean, I would assume that most Native Americans would have, far more than two or three kids throughout, right? Throughout the entire continent, even, you know. This is. I mean, I was mostly surprised by Latin America because it used to be that, yeah, when I was growing up, again, it was more typical to see families with two, three kids. Four kids was rare. I mean, there was a traditional, there was one traditional Catholic family, like in the entire school, that had like five kids, right? And the other ones were also traditional Catholic, but they just didn't have that many kids. They just settled with maybe a couple. Point is, the philosophy has been around for generations. My uncle was a fireman in the early 60s, bought his first house at 28, had six kids. Wife didn't work. Eric alert. Exactly. That's what's causing this. The idea that, no, a family is just an old institution that has no value. A traditional family like a husband and wife, right? And a wife that stays at home and looks after the kids. That is, caveman mentality. No, now your wife has no kids. You both work your ass. Who benefits? Who benefits in the short term? Because these assholes, they only think short term. They only thought, you know what? We'll install this system by which, just to survive, this one parent working thing doesn't float. This does not work for us. No, we'll have both of them working their asses off. Then, if they don't have a family, if they don't have a life, if they don't have any children, screw them. We'll make both of them work. It used to be that with one parent working, with one, with one of the two. I mean, could easily be that a man decided to be a stay-at-home dad, right? If I have, a wife that she's a doctor, or she has a very good paying job, and you organize, you talk about it, and yeah, you know what, I make a lot of money, I'm the one that can pop up the kids, so we'll structure things so as, take a little bit of time off, but at the end of the day, you'll be the one raising the kids and doing the school runs and being there for them, and I'll be for them as much as I can, but prioritizing that the stream of income that I can definitely provide. And you do whatever you want with your life, but it could perfectly be the case that a guy looks after the kids plural, and the wife spends more time out working and whatnot, typically it would be the wife that does that, but someone has to, make that decision and take care of them. Now, no one wants to do that, and that's how we ended up in this nonsense. Renovation. Hey, man, nice to see you there. Zero, fathers have no rights to their children under the Irish legal system, and the mother can take everything from you with just an allegation, including the kids. So I'm not having any, not worth it. Another reason. Thanks, Renovation, for your contribution there. You're not, there's no incentive. You're not having kids because there's no incentive for you to have them. It's a financial burden. It's a pain in the ass. You go to a restaurant with your kids and they look at as if you just brought even worse than a wild animal. I mean, I've gone to places with my kids where someone gives you like, oh, you bring a child here and they're maybe there with a fucking dog. So the dog is okay. The child bothers people. That's what they've constructed. That's the social engineering that they had planned and executed, and the mentality that they install on the average dumbass that cannot think for himself. But that's the way it goes. Legally, no right whatsoever. You're screwed. And that's what you have. Lone Gunman X. So much pressure in the late 50s to not have kids. Zero population growth. We can't produce enough food to feed the population, but oops, we actually can. TPTB, one fewer peasants. Yeah, the power to be wants fewer peasants. Yeah, the fantasy, this idea that nope, we cannot feed all of these people. Really, with the amount of morbidly obese people, we cannot feed more people. It was always a lie. It was a Malthusian lie 100 years ago or whatever, and it's still a lie now that Bill Gates is pushing. It's Steve Bishop. Hey, man, 2 kids. Yeah, well, again, you see it right here. A bunch have 3 kids, lots of zeros as well. Mike Fisher, 0, and my friends have 0 too. I'm 60, and my friends, some are younger. I count 10 people right now who didn't have kids, including my ex-wife. There you go. There you go. And why is it? Because there was no financial motivation. There was no social motivation. The peer pressure was against you. Would love to have a huge family, but society is detrimental. Absolutely. Steve Bishop, Fairfield, factor in voluntary abortions number per year, and that will revert much of the losses. Yeah. Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah, it definitely would. Mm. But there's more money to be made in killing kids than in even having them. It's insane. Nitsu Oxinarv, civilization rise and civilization's fall, not all will disappear. Well, in this case, though, it seems to be a lot more globalized because other than Africa, not looking good. Conscious movie review, pushing women right in part government agenda to get women in the workforce to get 2 incomes per household. Women prefer to build their careers instead of being a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, exactly. That is all part of the social engineering aspect. Lone Gunman X, thanks man for the super chat. Much appreciated. There is a war on the family unit. It is the fundamental building block of society. Why? Well, because they want weaker societies. They don't want us to have, as much of a say on how things work and how all of this is ran. Renovation. Hey, Fernando. Hope you and the family are doing great, and also Happy New Year. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks to all of you. And yeah, I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas and a nice New Year as well. To children, Fernando. Thank you, sir. NC Farmer. Nice. Craig Amos. Game is rigged, and many modern women are not worth it. Yeah, and many men are not worth it either. It goes both ways. Many men just don't want a responsibility either. Anyway, yeah, guys, as you see, I'm still with a little bit of a cough, so I'll cut it a little bit shorter this time. Let me go through the last ones, last comments, and I'll do a little bit of a shorter live stream today. Conscious movie reviews: adult children do not stay in the same area where the parents live. Most move away. Family members are not available to sit together to help raise each other's kids. Yeah, also true. It used to be that, you know, I have a friend that, um, they had the grandparents living with them, right? And I'm talking about a pretty wealthy family, like a lot of money, like stupid amounts of money, but old Italian values. So Nana, grandma lived with them, and she looked after the kids. You know, it wasn't about a need to have any of that, but they stayed together. They want kids from factories that you see this artificial womb thing. That's crazy. No, I mean, not surprised by anything these days. Feel better. Yeah, thanks, Steve Bishop. Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm okay, but talking too much, it gives me a little bit of cough still. So yeah, no, it's not COVID or anything like that. I actually have several little tests, so I did that. But maybe something that the kids brought from out there in the world. Don't worry, Elon Musk has 10 kids. Well, let's end up with that. The elite has been telling us for decades, for generations now, don't have kids. What is it that they do? The exact opposite. They have a million kids. They form entire clans. They form entire clans so as to take over in different countries, in different continents, by having a bunch of fucking kids that they tell us not to have. They tell you not to eat meat, but they eat the best meat they could possibly have. They tell you not to drive your car while they fly around in damn jets, right? So, what is it that they do? Well, they do the exact opposite of what they tell us or force us to do, which is very same. Anyway, guys, gonna be all for now. Hope I kept you entertained for a while and give you some more food for thought. This is very interesting, and this will have some serious consequences. I'll try to work during this week on some of the planning, some of the things we can do so as to prepare for this as the population keeps aging and the problems that this brings along. Anyway, guys, let's leave it here. Much appreciated. Okay. See you on our next video and our next weekend's live stream. Take care.